What's going on, everybody out in internet land? I know we don't have guests on very often. However, I am happy and proud to be able to present to you an up and coming podcaster, Felix Levine from the Where's This Going podcast. This dude has had some big names on: Julio Arce, who's an MMA fighter, Christina Hutchinson from the Guys We Fucked podcast, Mark Norman, one of my favorite people, stand-up comic, and Steve Hindy, who is a Brooklyn brewery chairman and co-founder. And those are only a couple of the guests that he's had on. You can find his podcast on Apple iTunes. We're going to be talking about his process to getting these guests on, why he started podcasting, shit like that. Laughing at Birds is actually the first show that he has ever been on. That's pretty surprising considering the heavy hitters that he's had on his podcast. But either way, I'm perfectly fine with being the first one to open a door for him, so hopefully other people will follow suit and do the same. Okay, I think I got it. What the fuck? Wait, call again. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Unfucking believable.
You can hear me?
Yeah, that's again my fault. Internet cut out.
You're good. Hold on, let me just put you so that you're on my headphones. How do I do this?
Yeah, take your time.
Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Beautiful. There we go. We're all good. We're all connected.
All right.
Are we all set?
Yep, it's up. It's
Perfect.
running.
Beautiful.
Oh, what a mess. Okay, so you know what? I mean, I had questions written down, but I'm gonna put all that on hold for a second, and
Okay.
I might as well just start with: has anything like this ever happened to you? And do you?
No. Well, you're actually.
Go ahead.
No. Well, you're my first podcast. I mean, I do all of mine, but you're the first that I've been invited on. So thanks for having me, man.
That's crazy. What? Are you serious? That's crazy.
I know. Well, you know, I'm still new to the game, so it's been only about 6-7 months. So right now, I've just been hustling and doing my show and trying to grow that. But you know, you're the first one that I've been invited on, so I'm very happy to do it.
Well, I'm glad I caught you early before you blow up, dude. Because I mean, shit, dude. I came across your podcast by chance because I saw you had the fucking immortal Mark Norman on your podcast. When I saw, I was like, dude, holy shit! Like, I listened to that dude on everything, bro. So when I seen like he was on a random podcast, I was like, bro, I gotta check this guy out and see what's he about, what is he doing. And then, as if like overachiever, bro, not only do you have Mark Norman on, but then you go and get Zuby right after that. Like, bro, this guy's killing it right now.
I appreciate you. Yeah, no, that's very kind. I know it's been a pretty insane kind of 6-7 months. You know, I mean, same with you. I'm a huge Mark Norman fan. And so, with this podcast, when I first started it, it was him and a couple others that were like my dream guests. And so now that, you know, I made the one with Norman happen, which is a crazy backstory if you want to hear it. I'll tell you. So when I first started it, there are two big comedians that I was hoping to get on at some point. It was Mark Normand and Andrew Schulz. Okay, and I love both those guys. They're both insane. They're both hot and up and coming, and they'll probably be talked with in the same category as like the Bill Burrs and the Joe Rogans and the Dave Chappelles. I think at some point, but. So I was hoping to get someone like Mark Normand. I'm writing a bunch. I write hundreds of emails a day. And so I had reached out to his agents, two really nice agents, and they had gotten back to me. They were like, Mark is down. Like, let's just figure out a time. So I was like, super, this is great. This is exciting. And then I think he got booked up for like a tour to do something in Kansas City. And so they were like, look, like he just got booked up. We're gonna have to put this on hold or whatnot. And then I went to Europe for a month, and so I was like, fuck, I missed him. Like I'm probably not gonna get him back. And then I see he goes and does Joe Rogan. He goes and does like Fallon, does like a set on Fallon. He does like all these big shows.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like shit. Like I could have gotten him before he went like that big. And so I was like, it's going to be really hard for me to get him after. And I told one of my friends, actually, a friend named Martha, shout out to Martha. I was like, because she's a huge fan of his, she was like, you need to get him on. And I'm like, Martha, I'm going to get him on. I need to. But right now, it's probably going to be a couple years because he's really starting to blow up, like take off. I mean, once you do Rogan, you
Forget it. Yeah.
You get catapulted into another world. And so then, a couple months go by. I'm still looking at all this stuff, and honestly, it was at a point where it was kind of hard for me to even like look at some of his content because I love him so much, and it was gonna make me like sad that I like missed out on my opportunity, and I didn't want to like continue to love him even more, and then be like, fuck, I didn't get him. So, but I still, of course, followed him and all of that stuff, and then one day I think I reposted one of his stories, or it was like a post that he made. It was one of his skits or one of his clips from one of his, I think it was a special, and he reposted it. And then I always remember I was in bed, I was in New York, I had just been home for the weekend, and I'm like, fuck it, let me DM him randomly. So I DM him and I'm like, hey Mark, I host this podcast, whatever. I've had a couple people that I named some comedians that he knew. I think it was like Christina Hutchinson, Will Sylvince, two great comedians, love them. And I was like, look, like I'm a huge fan of yours, would love to make it happen. And then, I'm like, okay, this is a 1 in a million shot. He's not going to respond. And then he responds and he's like, sure, sounds fun. Something like that. And I'm like, fuck yeah, like I got him. Or at least like he responded, he knows who I am. He knows like we're on the right path here. And so I'm like, look, whenever you want, you give me a time, you give me a place, or not a place, but you give me a time, and I record out of a studio in Brooklyn. Like I'll get you to the studio, I'll Uber you, I don't care, I'll do whatever it takes. And so I was supposed to go. So I go to school in Boston. So I wasn't planning on being in New York the following week. But he's like, "Can you do next Tuesday?" And I'm like, "Yes, of course I can do next Tuesday." Like So I come back next Tuesday. We're DMing, and he's like the nicest guy in the world. And so I get him into the studio. We knock out our episode. He's, just even off camera, like even nicer, just asking me questions, interested about my life. We sit down for a couple minutes, and it's crazy because I'm like, wow, like I'm sitting down with Norman off camera. He knows my name. We text, like, and so the episode went great. It's by far my most popular in terms of numbers. Like people are saying nothing but nice things, so that's amazing. And then a couple weeks later, I was just in New York 10 days ago or so, and I saw he was performing at a place called The Stand, and I texted him as I'm on my flight going to New York, and I'm like, hey Mark, I see you're at The Stand tonight. I might go with me and a friend. Could I come say what's up to you before? He's like, yes, of course. Like, we'll come say what's up. Just text me when you get there. I text him when I get there, and he's like, I'm here, and I'm like looking around. I can't see him, and then I look across the bar, and then there's Mark, and he's like waving at me. He's like, Felix, and I'm like, oh shit. So then I go over, we talk for a couple minutes, and nicest guy. So Mark Normand, love the guy.
Dude, that is the best fucking story I've ever heard, man. I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I've heard him a lot on Jim and Sam show. I just realized that I've heard of Tuesdays with Stories before, but I never really checked it out until after your podcast is actually what pushed me to go and check it out. So I decided to come out on Instagram that I'm a big Tuesday now. So, super into it. I just, what I really like about that dude is you can see that he's a regular guy, man. Like it's difficult to explain, but fuck all that, dude. Did you see the set that he did in I want to say it was Canada. I think it was at the
Just
fuck.
for laughs.
Yeah, just for laughs,
Yeah,
dude. Did you see that shit?
yeah, I've seen literally everything you could probably see of Mark Normand on YouTube and on the medias. But yeah, to your point, he is super down to earth. I mean, honestly, like with all my guests, I really can't. I love them all. They've all been incredibly nice, incredibly humble, and so and Mark Normand like is he's just the best, man. He's like, sometimes I'll get intimidated when I text them because I don't want to bother them because they've got busy lives. But Normand, I know, like, if I text him, he'll give me like a really cool response, and it's always nice to, even the other day when I saw him like at his comedy show, it's like it's kind of surreal for me because just 7 months ago, I was just in my college dorm, just chilling, and now, if I go to New York and I hit up Mark Normand, like I can go say what's up to him, and so for me, that's unreal, and he's just he's about as down to earth as they come. I mean, he's done every single big show you could think of, and it hasn't touched his ego one bit. So I've got nothing but love for that guy, and I hope he. I mean, we talked about it. Down the road, and maybe a couple months and a year, we'll get him back on, and I look forward to that. But even when I go back home to New York, even in a few weeks, in a few days actually. I'm just gonna look to see where he's performing and say what's up to him. But yeah, he's a rock star.
The reason why I bring up the Just for Laughs is because right after I went on my fucking YouTube deal, and I was talking about how I couldn't believe that you got this dude on because one of my biggest pet peeves, dude, and I definitely want to get into this later, is the fact that nobody wants to touch you unless you have a million fucking people behind you, as if you have no talent, no drive, no ability to do anything. That fucking kills me. So to be able to see somebody that is just building up, I mean, just like I am, to have a dude on like that is amazing. But I watched that set and the crowd really bothered me, dude. It's almost like you're going to a place for comedy, man. It's not all gonna be like, I don't understand. Like, if he makes jokes about shit that makes you uncomfortable, like, you do realize it's just a joke, right? Like, that, I don't know if you know who Daniel Tosh is.
Yeah, I do.
But, that one joke that he made about, his sister getting raped with the silly string and all that.
I didn't hear that one. No.
That one is fantastic because it's
Okay.
a perfect display of exactly what I'm talking about. Whereas basically, like, the premise of the joke is, and you probably want to shoot me for this for saying it, but the premise of the joke is that him and his sister play jokes on each other all the time, so he thought it would be a great idea to replace her mace with silly string, and then she goes out and she gets raped, and while she's getting raped she realizes that he got her, and the crowd is making that fucking noise that they make when they're not really on board with something, and he's like, you do know that it's just a joke, right? Like, I
Right. No.
wouldn't
I think, yeah. I think that's it's we talked about that with Normand, and even after off camera, it's like in this day and age. I mean, I'm no comedian. I'm not in that world, but I've had a lot of comedians on, and we've talked about it, and it's this very PC culture, I think, is tough in a lot of ways because I understand wanting to respect different groups. I think that we're all on agreement with that. It's just at some point you don't need to comedy is comedy, and a good example of that too is I saw Andrew Schultz live the other day, and when he came to Boston, and Schultz will say some of the most fucked up things you've ever heard, but it's hilarious. At the end of the day, it's a joke. He doesn't, if he talks about tough subjects, it's not him endorsing rape or pedophilia or Nazis. It's just him taking a subject matter and finding a comedic twist to it. So I think those people are brilliant at what they do, and I think that if you're offended by some of these jokes, I don't think you're really truly listening.
Well, the one question that I have, because I'm currently going through this now, where when I started the podcast roughly about a year ago, and I had a friend of mine was doing it with me when he eventually had to tap out of doing it because he was worried that in the culture that we live in, if he makes it really was if I say some shit that happens to be off color, that somebody could take that if it happens to go viral or the wrong person hears it, it gets back to his real life job and it affects his real life,
Mm.
which is just it's fucking crazy that this is where we've gotten. But I mean, what do you think? Honestly, I kind of feel like it's only a small percentage of people, but because of the internet and Twitter and all of this, I think their voice may be a lot louder than it normally would be. I mean, and do you really do people really want to be defended? Like, okay, I have disabilities. I don't need people, drawing up picket signs for me that don't say the word retard. Say it, use it, enjoy it. That's, by
Mm.
you, what these people don't realize is even though Carlos Mencia was a fucking joke thief and all of that, whether he's a good guy or not is completely separated from his comedy work. But by comedians bringing up things like pedophilia or making fun of handicapped people, they're putting a spotlight on something that doesn't normally get the spotlight, which I think is really important. But these people that are so far to the left that want to just protect everybody like a helicopter mom, they don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. I think you also have to really think about when you're talking about these comedians, and especially these high level comedians, people that make all these jokes that we're talking about. I mean, every single of the top comedians make them. Chappelle, Rogan, Norman, Schultz. I mean, they all bring up these topics, and I do agree with you. I think it's the really really radical left that like the heavy, heavy, heavy liberals that will, say their intentions are good. Their intentions are, well, I think their intentions are to protect, people in groups that have maybe been oppressed or for whatever reason have struggled, and so they want them to not feel isolated. That's one goal, and there's a means of achieving that goal that I think you can, you know, put into place without like canceling people for making jokes about things, because now it comes to a point where in the comedic world, I think some comedians, not all, some comedians feel like they can or can't say something, and then when you start censoring comedians, then there's like it censors the comedy, and then it censors the enjoyment that we get out of it. And so I think by people like all those the great ones, the Chappelles and everything, by like pinpointing those issues and commenting on them, one, they're bringing, as you said, light to those issues, and two, I mean, I think we're also actually starting to maybe trend in a better direction where with these sensitive issues, the fact that we're able to talk and joke about them is making them more, socially acceptable. And just because Dave Chappelle says the word retard doesn't mean he's trying to insult anybody with a disability. It's just him making a joke. So I think, I do think that a lot of what you're saying is correct, and I think that, even when in speaking to some of these comedians, I think it's really good that the comedy world has kind of come together to be like, hey, look, this PC like radical PC thing is not healthy for what we're doing. And I think that we're starting to, I think, trend back in a direction where it's like, look, everything is fair game. And most, honestly, most of the top comedians make everything fair game. I don't see Andrew Schultz or Mark Normand filtering themselves with absolutely anything, which I love, which is the like part of the main reason I love to see them. And honestly, when you go to these clubs, these comedy clubs, and you're not allowed to have your cell phone or videotape or photograph, it's partially for that reason. It's because people will take that soundbite of Andrew Schultz maybe saying retard, and then they'll put it on Twitter as if he's like trying to insult anyone when he's just making a joke. And so I think even through some of like the past couple of years where it's been incredibly tight in PC, I think we're trending in a better direction.
Well, there's that, and then I think they're ignoring the fact that there was a decent amount of time where these words were just acceptable, where people used them day to day and they didn't have the meaning that people attach to them now, which is one thing that you can't just erase the parts of history you don't like, for one. And two, when you start to try to censor comedy, I think that's really dangerous for freedom of speech as a whole, because then how long is it going to be until everybody is censored for can we not, when are we going to get to a point where we can't even just have a regular conversation about shit?
Yeah, and I think I agree with that, and I think even it's been pretty nice to see a couple weeks ago. I think it was Barack Obama who spoke out about this, like let's stop being so woke, or I don't know if those were his exact words, but I think he did use the word woke in the sense of like, look guys, like it's one thing you want to make change and enact change, but it's another thing to be like try to act too woke or too politically correct, because then it does hinder freedom of speech, and it does hinder artists' creativity. And I think, quite frankly, it's been nice to see all the comedians kind of come together and push back against this like woke PC culture, because at the end of the day, it was interfering with their work and their publicity and their them in the public eye. And so especially having someone like Obama speak out about this kind of same issue in that regard, I think all kind of falls under this freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and just quite frankly, just being kind to one another. Because when you try to bash someone over them not using the proper word because they're trying to make a joke, it just it creates division, it creates tension. And I think that Obama, as being a former president, his main goal is to bring unity, and he wants to see this country do well. And I think part of the way that we bring this country back together and hopefully some kind of unity is by understanding that joke and not a joke, and what is offensive and not offensive, and being able to at least have a conversation, because right now the issue is just having a conversation.
Well, the other part of that too is that a lot of this comes from not being face to face with people anymore. Is that you're behind a screen, you can type whatever you want, and there's no repercussions to it, which is, I think a big reason why it's gone as far as it has. Because if we were both out in public somewhere and you said some shit that I didn't like, I think we would have a completely different conversation face to face than we would if we were both online through the Twitter or whatever it might be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I think there was a time when technology started to come and be really advanced, where I think people would be even more affected by like online trolls, and I think, or like probably more celebrities, just because they get a higher volume of online trolls than regular people. But now I think we're starting to really see a world where if you have some kind of fame or some kind of status or social platform, most people I think that I've talked to, they just try to ignore it. They try not to read a lot of the comments. If they do and they see something negative, it's like whatever. But it does bother me to see someone, especially when I start to get some of these to know some of these people, like the Normans and the whoever I've gotten on the podcast. I don't like to see people say negative things about them, but at the end of the day, I think there's also a lot of people that do support people like Normand and celebrities, and and I think there's a lot of love out there, but I just hope that it doesn't get overshadowed by, the hate and the people that make it easy to write something through an anonymous Twitter account. Like, it's just stupid. And I think we've moved past that, or starting to move past that, hopefully.
Well, I was just gonna say what sucks the most about all of this is the fact that now somebody who could be a really big fan of one of those guys, like they're not, because they read, and I made the mistake of putting content out on YouTube, so I've had my fair share of beatings in the comment section, but you do wind up getting to a place where, like, is it even worth it to read any of this shit? But then at the same time, I'm like, well, what about, though, everybody then just wants to have that small conversation. Now everybody has to get shut down because of a couple of assholes are not happy with where they are in life, that maybe they want to be in that position and they're not. But I mean, fuck those people. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, even in my experience, I'll go through the comments, and honestly, for the most part, I really can't complain. People have been really nice, so that's really nice to see. But of course, I get those negative comments and this and that, and it's like, look, like, if you're taking the time out of your honestly, if you're taking the time out of your day to write something nice, like, I respect you even more. If you're taking the time out of your day to write something mean, I'm like, wow, like, you need to find something else to do. Like, I don't know, like, get a life, or I don't know, like, what are you accomplishing right now?
Seriously, because I mean, it does to think about the level of energy that it takes to be aggravated about something and then go out of your way to write some shit just to be a douchebag. Like, what are we really doing? We both know that you actually like what I'm doing, so let's just stop the flirting and get over the idea that, like, just enjoy it and be done with it. But
Exactly. It's like a thanks for watching, and I need listeners, so thank you for watching is basically what I could say.
it's like the Bill Burr sign off. Thanks and go fuck yourself. That's pretty much what it is. But I mean, since we're on the topic of all these things, I might as well ask you, when did you decide to start your podcast, and what did you do before you started the podcast?
So I'll give you the whole story. Most of my friends know it, but I don't think like the general public does. I so I was at UC Santa Barbara last year for my first year of college, and I was there, and I was looking to transfer schools. I'm originally from New York City, so from Brooklyn, and so going to Santa Barbara. I don't know if you've ever been. It's a beautiful place, but it's very different from New York. It's a beach town. People are relaxed. They walk barefoot. They smoke weed. They drink beer, and that's all fun.
Oh,
But
sounds amazing.
but at some point, just I guess with the kind of personality that I am, I like to get a lot of shit done. I like to move fast, and that wasn't really for me. And so I knew I was going to transfer and probably come back east. And so at that point, I kind of, once I knew I was transferring and doing all my applications to get out of there, I mean, I would enjoy the weather, but it was mostly like, let's grind and let's figure out ways to get out of here. And so in that time, I kind of isolated myself socially, I would say. I was dating someone who was back in New York, so I also felt like part of me was back home. And so I had all these things where I felt like I wasn't. I just kind of, was in my own little bubble for a couple months. And so what I actually started doing is I started listening to podcasts. I never listened to a single podcast starting last year. And so of course I knew Joe Rogan. I'm a huge UFC fan. So I'm like, I'm starting with Rogan because I heard so many great things about Rogan. And so I start with Rogan, and then I just get hooked. Like, every single second I'm listening to Rogan, every meal. Like, there was one kid, no disrespect to the kid, but he would ask me to get dinner, and I honestly would just rather listen to Rogan. Like, I would rather just eat and listen to Rogan and be in peace, and I would do this literally for every single meal. I would look forward to the end of class so I could turn on Rogan, get on my bike, go grab a sandwich, listen to more. And so I would listen to probably 3 to 5, 6 hours a day of Joe Rogan. And so I really kind of created this own world where it was just really me and everything that I was looking to accomplish. And then around February, March, I was talking to one of my best friends named Jonah, and I was like, look, I think this podcast thing is really cool. I was learning a lot. I was learning what I would try to do is after I listened to the episodes of people that I wanted to hear, I would try to click on people that I didn't know. And so kind of force myself to listen to someone new and learn something new. And so um, those actually happen to be some of my favorite episodes because I trusted, if they're on Joe Rogan, they're legit in whatever field they're doing.
Right,
And
yeah, they
so
must be good.
I'd start listening to random episodes, and I would listen to, I mean, just I would go through so many episodes. And so at one point I came back to New York over like a break, and I was like, look, I think I could do this, just because I really love talking to people. I'm interested in people in every single field, whether you're like super famous or super not famous. I don't really care. If you have an interesting story, I want to hear it. And so and I also, have always definitely been really like attracted or inspired by people who are just great at what they do. And so this would give me a great opportunity to kind of speak to people that were amongst the best in their field. And so once I told myself, all right, let's start this podcast. How are we going to go about it? And so I remember it was about end of March. I was like, all right, how do we get into this? And at first I'm like, do I want to buy my own equipment? Do I want to travel? Do I want to try to get studios and rent studios? So it was a lot of decision making there. And then I had my dad's ex. She actually helped me with the graphic art and the logo. Shout out to Anna. She did a great job on that. And so we sat down and we knocked that out, and she did a phenomenal job with that. I loved that. So I had my logo. I had some potential guests I was thinking about, and then I'm like, all right, how do we build this from the ground up? And so it's hard in the beginning to convince someone when you don't have a show to come on your show. And so I was in Santa Barbara, and I'm like, how do I get this started? And so I first wanted to find a studio because studio is important. And I reached out and I found this studio called Hidden City Studios in Santa Barbara. It's ran by who is now my audio engineer full time, is a man named Elliot Lanham. And I had one of my dad's best friends who was a former professor all around a bunch of different institutions. He was a Claude Monet expert. I mean, the guy is brilliant, and he was living in Santa Barbara. So I'm like, all right, I know he'll say yes to me. He's a really nice guy. He's really fucking smart. Let's have him be my first guest. And he's in Santa Barbara. He's local. We can record there. So I get the studio. I get it all set up. I do all my research. His name's Paul Tucker. So I get Paul in the studio. I'm with Elliot, who's there recording. He's my audio engineer. And we knock out episode 1. So we get episode 1 up and running. And I'm like, wow, this is a ton of work to just get one episode, right? And for me, what was really important was just, being young. You don't want to come off as sounding young, especially when you're trying to promote a show. And so for me, it was like trying to get rid of all the possible things that would make me look, unprofessional. So it was just really being tidy on my research. That's why, especially for the first ones, I wanted to really make sure I was in a good studio, that everything would be the right way. And so it was a really comfortable environment. I didn't have to think about what's going on with the audio. I don't know anything about any technological anything, so I just want to focus on the conversation and get it rolling from that part. And so we got episode 1 with him, with Paul Tucker. It went well, and then I had I was basically able to kind of get the ball rolling with guests that were like friends of friends, or my third guest was a man named Daniel Coyle, who wrote a best-selling book on Lance Armstrong, or with Lance Armstrong, kind of. And he was like one of my good friends' dad, so I knew like if I could ask her, maybe she could help me with that. And so in the beginning, I knew I just had to get the ball rolling. And so I got the ball rolling. And so basically when I was in Santa Barbara, it was like, all right, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to knock out my application, and I'm going to try to transfer to the East Coast, and I'm going to focus on the podcast. That was like my main 3 things. I basically talked to nobody. Like I was in my own world. And so I remember I released my first episode, I think mid-April. And then actually, funny story, the first day that I went to see that studio, I got my acceptance letter to my now current university, Boston University. And so I felt like there was something in the air that day that was just good vibes, I go visit my podcast studio for the first time. I get into the school I want. And I just remember it was like this like cathartic feeling of like everything's starting to come together. And so after I get my first few episodes out, the big moment for me was I don't know if you watch any UFC, but I emailed. So I'm emailing like hundreds of people a day. I'm emailing people I'm interested in and hoping to get to get a response, to get a yes. And so I email Eric Anders, who's a UFC fighter. He won a national championship at Alabama. He used to play football. He's a really high level athlete, and he responds. He's like, "Let's do it." And so that was
That's
huge for me.
crazy.
I know that was huge for me because it was like the first person that I didn't know, at least through some contact, who had accepted to come on. And so I'm like, and especially him, I'd watched all his fights. I was a big fan. I mean, the guy's super sweet. And so he said yes to me, and I was like, this is insane. And so I'm like, look, is there any time you're going to be on the West Coast? I'd love to do it in person, because ideally I do Skype calls, but ideally, if you can, person is always nicer just because you get to meet them, especially if you're like look up to them. It's a cool to be in the same room as them. And so we set it up. I'm like, when are you gonna be in the West Coast? And he's like, I'll be in Anaheim on X date. I'm like, all right, I'll come down from Santa Barbara to Anaheim. I'll find a studio. We'll make it happen. And I remember that day I go down to Anaheim. I'm in the middle of like, I don't even know, the Anaheim Convention Center. He was doing like a CBD. They had paid him to go there. And so he's like, here, meet me at this place at this time, and then we'll go to the studio together. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And I remember I don't know if you've ever been to the Anaheim Convention Center. It's literally probably as big as Disney World. Like, it's fucking huge.
Holy shit.
And I'm texting him, and I'm like, where are you? And he's like, I'm by the water fountain. And I'm like, Eric, I love you, but there are like 100 water fountains. Like, I don't know which one you're by. And so then he calls me. We meet up. And then we meet up, really nice guy, and I'm like, here, walking. So it's him and his amazing wife Yasmin, and we're walking together, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm in the middle of Anaheim walking with Eric Anders, UFC fighter. Like, we're about to go to the studio. I'm like, what is going on? And so so then we get in an Uber together, and here I am again thinking the same things. We're having small talk about, like, his last fight that was on a UFC main card, pay-per-view, and he's telling me like fun tidbits about it, even though it didn't go his way. And I'm in an Uber with Eric Anders and his wife, who's a bodybuilder. She's really successful herself. And so we get to the studio, and we're like in bumfuck Anaheim, and there's nothing. And I had reserved this studio. It was apparently the best one in Orange County, and we're looking around. It literally looks like 100 different stores that all look the same structure. And I'm like, I think this is the address, but like there's no like sign that says like whatever studio was called.
Oh, you
like,
must be freaking out
and
right now.
I'm like, okay, let's get out of the car and try to figure it out. And Eric is like, man, I love that guy. He's like the coolest guy ever. Like, super patient. And so we finally find it. It's like literally like around the corner. And we walk in there, and it's like two stoners that are running my session. No disrespect to them, but like, you want, when you're paying for a studio, to get, high quality engineers, and they were good at what they did. They just looked high out of their mind.
Yeah, no,
and
you
so
want
I walk.
you want somebody that looks the part. You don't want to walk in there and shoot Cheech and Chong.
Exactly, because I feel a little pressure because I'm with a UFC fighter, a big guy that I respect, and I just want people that are going to do their job, and they did their job. They just, in the beginning, I think they were just high, to be honest. And so we walk in there, and then it takes them a little time to set up, and he's super patient, super nice. And it was like a Sunday from like 6 to 9 p.m. I get the two of them, and we get Yasmin on the show because, she's interesting as well, and she was there, and she's super sweet. And so I end up doing like I think that was my longest episode ever. It was 2 hours. We're in Anaheim. We finish at 9 p.m. on a Sunday, and I'm like, these people are amazing. Like, the fact that they would take a risk on me and meet up with me and on a Sunday night when they could just have like a date night out in Anaheim was remarkable. And so that all of these things kind of start to get the ball rolling. And then once people see, oh, okay, your show, you had a UFC fighter, you had this best-selling author, then I'm able to kind of promote it, and I get the ball rolling and rolling and rolling. And then, I come back to Brooklyn, and I start recording out of my studio in Brooklyn. And so, long story short, ever since then, it's been an incredible journey, because I've just been able to get so many people that I admire, that I've watched on Netflix, that I've watched on television, that I've watched on Kimmel, Fallon, Rogan. I mean, like, I think like I've had 6 or 7 guests that have done Rogan that then, on the back end of their tour, like Zuby, came and did New York. When he came to New York, did my show, and so it's just been a surreal experience, to be honest.
See, dude, me and you could not be more different. You're doing everything right. You're renting out studios. I'm literally in my apartment right now. You see all this shit behind me. I live with an
You're
artist.
grinding. You're grinding though, and that's all that matters. At the end of the day, it's just in the beginning, it's really hard. Whether I do it in the studio, whether you do it at home, the moral of the story is that you're putting in the work, and that's what I respect. And it's really I know how hard it is to start a show, to gain traction, to get guests you want. But at the end of the day, actually, best piece of advice that I ever received was from Christina Hutchinson. She told me, don't try to make the best podcast or the most successful podcast or the one that's going to go viral. Just follow your curiosities and the rest comes together. And so for me, that's really been what it is. There's days where it's really hard. I remember days where I would have an episode out and I wouldn't have a next guest planned. And I'm like, fuck, like I'm trying to get one out in the next 7 to 10 days. How am I going to do it? I don't have a guest, like much less anything else. And so for me, it's just been really like, there are a lot of tough days, a lot of hours put in, but at the end of the day, if you follow your curiosity, if you put the work in, if you write the emails, if you reach out to the guests, if you get a 1% acceptance yes rate of someone who says yes, for me, that's successful. If you write 100 emails, you get one person that's like, let's do it. I'm thrilled. So it's, you're grinding, and at that point, that's all that matters. The rest will come.
So that's crazy. Okay, because one of the questions that I had written down was what were some of the rejections that you've had, but
Mm,
hearing your turnout rate, dude, is I don't you have a confidence that I could only dream of having.
I
Like
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I've reached out to people who are small as well, and they're just like, rather than just say no, we don't want to do it. They're like, oh, we'll see what our schedule looks like, and go fuck yourself. Like I already know the whole deal.
Yeah.
Like I'm just trying to help you too, stupid. If we stick together, this will work for both of us. But it got to a point where I was like, you know what? Do I really need guests? I just come in here and 90% of the time I write nothing down. I just come into the room, I sit in front of the microphone, I press the record button, and whatever comes out comes
Eh,
out.
eh, it's I know a lot of people that do the same, and I think those are just as interesting as anything else. I think for me, you asked what are some of the big rejections. I mean, if you look at my inbox on my emails, okay, I have probably sent out, man, I don't know, in 6 months, 5 to 7, 8,000 emails. I don't even
Holy
know. I mean,
shit.
like, I remember there were days where I'd be like, all right, this is an email day. I would call it like an email day where I would sit there and I would just grind out my emails, find those email lists, get, send them, like, get them out. And I really, you have to, for me, it was like, understand that if 1 out of 100 people says yes, that's successful. And that's really hard on days where you're like, I know I'll send an email sometimes and I'm not going to get a response, and that's fine.
Right, like
It's part of the
while
process.
you're writing it, you're like, I know I'm wasting my
Exactly.
time right
I
now,
know
but I
I know I'm
have to
wasting my
do it.
time, but I will say there have been the best is when I write one and I don't expect it to go anywhere and I get a response and it's a yes. And those make it worth it for all the tens, 20, 100, 2,000 hours that I put into it. It makes it all worth it at that point. And so some of the best rejection stories, I don't know. I've had guests that I won't name names, but some people that are well known that'll be like, I think the one that rubbed me the wrong way, I think it was, I won't name him, but he's done a lot of big shows, but he was like, hey, sorry, I only do big shows, and I only do
Ugh.
like, or I only do big shows or my friends, like, thanks. And so I was like, all right, like, you just can't take these things personally. I've
You could
honestly, like,
have was your beef like, dude? You could have worded that differently, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Honestly, I just prefer if you just don't respond. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? I mean, or sometimes it's nice if I email like a manager of someone and like, hey, look, like he's really busy. Like, let's maybe touch base in a couple months, and when they're free, we can discuss it. For me, it's fine. I don't. I'm someone luckily that doesn't really take these kinds of rejections poorly, because at the end of the day, I've been very blessed to have all the people that I've had on, and as I continue to grow, that'll only hopefully get bigger. And so, it's really, I think, a mindset thing for me, because there have been days where it's so hard. But you know, it's the the experiences and the people that I've met and that I now know from it, I would do it 100 times over and 100 times more emails and 100 times more hours to get to the same results. So it makes it all worth it.
That's so good. I'm happy to hear you say that, dude. And honestly, for what it's worth, for what my opinion is worth, dude, I honestly think that it's only a matter of time before you blow up, just because of the way everything is done so professionally, the way that you ask the questions, you're actually interested too. That's the other part, is a lot of people just seem like, all right, come on, get done with your part so I can talk. You know, like, I love Bert Kreischer, dude, but he seems guilty of that a lot of times, where he'll be like, okay, I'm gonna cut you off. I wanted to hear what you're saying, but I gotta get this part out. Like, not even
No,
to.
no, I really appreciate that. That means the world, you know. And yeah, you know, it's a really it's one thing actually. Another thing that I think was interesting in my time was really the way that I've changed from that first episode to now, and the way that I listen. Speaking of listening, and it's in the beginning I was so nervous about getting off the right question. Looking at the big thing for me was like looking interested,
Right,
like
right.
looking at what they're saying is interesting.
Because you
But then
feel
when you
stupid, right? You don't want to make too
yeah.
much eye contact, because then you're like, "What is this guy into me? What's going on here?" Like,
So it was about finding that, but then what I realized is I just wasn't listening. Luckily for me, I had all the recordings so I could go back and listen to them. But I realized I would walk out of there and I'd be like, "Wait, what? Like, what did he say or what did she say?" And then I was like, you know, you need to change that approach, because the thing that I find that I've had maybe like the most success with, I find, is when I try to do this thing about sometimes when I feel like I'm kind of dazing off, not dazing off, but not fully listening to what they're saying, is I tell myself lock in, as in like lock in on what they're saying, lock in on the words they're saying. Because when you really listen, that's when you can get the best question and the best bounce off of your guest, right? And so for me, like, honestly, I still probably walk out of there sometimes like in a daze of like what just happened, but it's mostly because I'm like trying to be so focused that I don't like I'll think about what they're saying and then I'll move on to the next thing and try to erase what just happened. So luckily all of it's recorded so I can go back and listen to it when I want. But for me it's really, yeah, once you listen and once you let your guests just fully say what they want to say, you know, that's where you get some of the best stories, and that's where you get as an interviewer, just being able to really bounce off of my guest is what I love doing the most. And honestly, you know, when you have a guest that'll be like, "Oh, that's a great question," that's like a fuck yeah, got him. And most of the times where I've had guests say that is when I've asked a question that I never had written down or I never had thought of before, but it was because of the fact that I listened to them that I was able to get the, you know, perhaps the right question to them. So it's been an incredible learning curve and experience, and it's given me a lot of confidence in just being able to speak to people and being interested in people, because you know, at the end of the day, whether it's a Mark Normand and they're really famous, or it's a fighter, or it's just, you know, someone who's maybe not as well known, I don't really care. You know, if you have something valid to say and you're respectful and you're dedicated to your craft, then that's just as insightful. And so it's just been a really great experience to see that, also to see that some of these people that are, you know, really successful, they're just regular people, you know, like when I sit down, when the camera's off and I'm sitting with Mark Normand and like I'm kind of pinching myself like, oh shit, it's Mark Normand. When I'm listening to what he's saying, I'm like, this guy is like just the coolest down to earth guy. Like I would chill with him whether his name's Mark Normand or whether his name's Joe Schmo. Like he's just a really nice guy. And so it's been eye opening in that way.
that's the problem, is that I think, I don't know who started it or why it continues, but for whatever reason, we seem to put, once a person gets to a certain spot, it's almost like they're not human anymore. Like they're a different breed of a thing. I mean, obviously, of course, you're gonna get excited when you're sitting with a fighter or a comic that you watch for a really long time. That's awesome because it's a stranger and you get to really see what this person is like. Are they who they act like they are on stage?
Mm-hmm.
But just, I think we need more of realizing that we're all not that different. Just because this dude
Yeah.
happens to be funny and can go in front of 100 people, a lot of people forget there's a local comedian out of Jersey, Vic DiBitetto. he cut vignettes for his YouTube channel. He still does it now, but he did one that really stuck out to me where he was behind the curtain right before they were about to call him out on stage, and he's crouched down, all the lights are out, and he's looking at the camera, and he goes, if right before they call you out on stage you don't feel like you're gonna shit your pants, quit, you're in the wrong business. And I was like, dude, that's okay. So even no matter what level you're at, you're always gonna have that, oh shit, this is happening feeling. Like, it doesn't seem to ever go away.
Yeah, I mean, and even honestly, every single guest that I've had, they talk about. I mean, it boils it down to just how human they are. You know, I remember, I think it was, might have been Christina Hutchinson or Liz Mealy or I don't know, or actually John Anik was a good example. UFC commentator John Anik, he was like, every time I'm cage side, I feel like I need to earn my place cage side. You know, I don't take it for granted. I don't take, you know, the fact that I mean, he has one of the best jobs in the world, in my opinion, and he gets to do that every weekend. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't perform, if he doesn't continually be the professional that he is,
They'll
then
replace him.
maybe that, yeah, and they'll be quick to do so because, you know, there's so many guys that are qualified. But, well, I don't think they'll be quick to do so because he's amongst the best ever. But you know, I think it's really that approach. It's, you realize that they're human, they get nervous, they know what's at stake. They know that if they don't perform, or if they're not professional, or if they don't do things the right way, that, you know, they're in highly competitive fields. And so it's just been super refreshing to see all of that, and for them to admit these things, you know, because at the end of the day, a lot of, you know, sometimes you'll see maybe a celebrity say, you know, X, Y, or Z on camera, and then, you know, maybe that's not what they mean, but they're just trying to show for the camera. What's really nice about the podcast setting is, like, and especially the types of bonds that I've, you know, created, and I try to create a really, like, safe space where they'll, you know, tell stories that maybe they weren't comfortable telling in another, you know, CBS or NBC or whatever kind of atmosphere, is that, you know, they're all human, and once they leave my studio, they go home, they'll cook, or maybe some of them will have people cook for them, and, you know, they sleep, they go to the bathroom, they shower. So at the end of the day, it's been really cool to see that they're just humans, and, you know, I'll text them the way I'll text my friends. You know, it's just it's been really cool to see that.
Well, speaking of which, I don't know about you, dude, but I gotta take a fucking bathroom break for 2 seconds,
Okay,
if
go ahead.
that's alright.
Go for it.
Very professional. That's how we do things around here, dude. This is the worst. At least this is your first one. I got you before you get big, so you don't have to deal with all this nonsense.
You're good.
I don't know how Rogan sits for 3 hours and doesn't get up to pee, dude. I have no idea.
I don't know.
One thing that I wanted to ask you. I mean, I do have some shit written down, which ironically you've touched up on a whole bunch of stuff without me even
Perfect.
asking you about it, which is awesome. But so you did say that if you have the opportunity, you like to have guests face to face with you, so you can have that connection, which I can understand that. When you agreed to come on, which, by the way, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy, just because it's amazing when anybody's willing to do anything. Not to demean you, that was terrible.
No. I appreciate that.
But okay, have you ever had an uncomfortable moment with a guest, like maybe you ask a question and it comes out the wrong way, or, you know, you say something that they take a certain way, and if you have, do you have a tactic of how to get out of that?
Honestly, I haven't had a lot of uncomfortable moments in that, to be honest. I remember once I was with it was with Christina Hutchinson, who's from, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's from the Guys We Fuck podcast, like, super big podcast. And so.
Shit! Wait, she's I think I know what you're talking. That's the one, I think, that has beef with Sam Roberts, or that might be the other. That might be the other girl. I know, I'm going real deep. You probably don't. I know the point. I know the podcast. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So she's So she was on, and I remember I said something that came off wrong. So one of my sponsors is Manscaped, and so we're talking about. I say to her before. I think I'm like, oh yeah, like I need to run this ad in the middle. Like, is it okay? I feel like you'd be like the right person to talk about that with, just because we're talking about her podcast is guys we fuck, and so I think and so she goes and she looks at me and she knew what I meant. She goes, oh thanks Felix, like as in like I called her like a slut or
Oh
something.
yeah, great.
And I was,
Yeah, I'm just a whore. I just like talking about dicks all the time. There's nothing more to me than that.
so that was funny. But that was no. I mean, there have been times, quite frankly, where nothing uncomfortable, like where something comes out really wrong. Because usually then I'll just like go on a little tangent of what I meant to say. But usually the only times that I can think of maybe bad moments I remember is when in the beginning I would get really nervous, like making sure I had a question ready or something to say after they were done speaking. And I remember once I was with Heather Hardy, who is amazing lady. She was the WBO Women's Featherweight Champ of the World last year, and she's so high level boxer. And so I start speaking with literally nothing in mind about what I'm gonna say, and I
Beautiful.
was like. And I was like, this is a little scary. Or I remember just feeling nervous because I'm like, I'm starting to speak. I'm on camera. I'm with someone who's like, she's fucking women's featherweight champ of the world,
She
and
could
I'm
beat
about to
my
like, I don't know
ass.
what. One, she could beat my ass, but I didn't know what I was gonna say, and so I always remember that moment as like like Felix, just relax. Like you don't have to know every single thing you're gonna say. Just again, like lock in, think about what they're saying, and don't feel like you need to have like three questions in the back of your mind. Like everything's okay. And so it was like one of those like panic moments that I learned for the future of like, look, buddy, like relax, like you'll be fine. Just listen to what they're saying, calm down, and you'll be good.
Dude, I mean, you brought up the rejections before, and I wanted to touch up on this because I've had a couple of them where I had to bomb my first guest that I ever had on my podcast. Horrible. I just gave it the name the Black Box because it might as well have been a fucking plane crash, dude. It was terrible. I had three dudes on who were heavy into sports. I thought it was gonna work because I'm a casual sports dude. I mean, obviously, Nets, Jets fan. I like teams that don't ever do anything. I got Devils jerseys over there. I figure I'm okay, right? So I get these guys in, dude, and nothing is landing. I'm trying to make jokes. They're not getting it. It's going so badly. It's to the point where they're having conversations amongst themselves. And I'm like, oh, this is just this has to be like as bad as it's ever going to get. And I actually should thank them for this because of that I've learned to by calling out when I bomb or mistakes that I make, it makes me a little bit more comfortable and it seems like people enjoy it because if you're bombing and you know it, the people listening, they know it too. So I mean you gotta
Well,
acknowledge it.
well, yeah. I mean, there's one. It's the beauty of audio editing. So that's thank God that somebody created that, so you can edit your stuff in the worst case if you need to take things out. But yeah, I think in terms of bombing and stuff like that, there's a huge learning curve when you're doing this stuff, and it seems like you got it right on episode one. So maybe that was a blessing in disguise. So it helped you for the rest of your episodes. But for me, it was I think every single time I do it, I record, that is, I do pick up on something and I learn something. And for me, it was in the beginning, it was I want to know my guests. I want to walk in there knowing my guests better than they know themselves. That was the ultimate goal, like in terms of research, in terms of this, that, and the other thing. And the reality is sometimes I walk in there and because of whatever, I have school, I just did a podcast. I remember once I did 4 and 5 days, and it's like
Ugh,
being able to learn everything about someone when you have four back to back
it's
is really
impossible.
really hard. Exactly. So it's trying to give each guest their due respect, and I think and giving and doing as much research as I can, and knowing at least all of the big basics and more than just the basics, so that afterwards when they say something, I can dive in, I can bounce off, I can feel comfortable. Because I think the only times where I ever felt less comfortable was when I felt like I wasn't prepared. And so for me, that's a big thing. It's just like being especially being young. My big fear was, as I mentioned kind of in the beginning of this, was just making sure that people felt like I was being as professional as possible, and that's a big word that I think about. Just professionalism and just trying to do things the right way and to the best that I can do them. So and that goes from the my audio quality to my question quality to my easiness with them and how I treat them, and if some of them are a little bit farther, if I get them maybe a car to the studio if that helps them. So just a lot of different things to make it an enjoyable experience, and two, at the end of the day, like I'm trying, or I hope that with some of them I can create relationships. And the reality is I'm not every guest I'm going to go out and be best friends with, but a good example is my 7th episode was with a man named Malachi Weir, who is on Billions. He starred in all the Billions seasons. He's Lonnie. If you watch Billions.
Hold on. You got to walk me through this because that's my shit, bro. Soder is my fucking guy, man.
Hey, love Soder. Yes,
Oh,
I'm trying to get Soder on too. I'll get him on soon.
Axel is a motherfucker, bro. That guy is a hateable cocksucker, but he's so good. He's so goddamn good. And Paul Giamatti, dude, bro, I could go.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I know. I'm a huge Billions fan the same way you are, and so I had Lonnie, Malachi Weir is his real name, and so for him, ever since we recorded that episode, we literally will text. The other weekend we were in Worcester together. We went to a museum. We got dinner. People would approach him, are like, "Hey, are you Lonnie? Are you this?" So that was fun. And we call each other on the phone the other day for like 2 hours just catching up. So it's been really cool because with some of them, even like the interaction with Normand or whoever it'll be, it's like some of these people I now know. They know who I am. They know my show. They know what the kind of person I am. We start to develop small relationships. So it's just been kind of surreal, because just a year ago I'm watching, as you're a big Billions fan too. I'm watching Lonnie and I'm watching all my favorite Billions characters together. And here I am now knowing, like the inside scoop on what's going on, to be fair, I don't know what's going on and what they're planning, but I do know, that I now know one of the stars of the show, and so it's just been cool to kind of hear like their stories of when they record, or when their relationships, what they talk about behind the scenes and stuff like that. And
dude,
so
do you listen to the Bonfire or no?
I don't listen to the Bonfire. Should.
Bro, dude, totally. Sirius XM channel 95, 6 to 8 p.m. Bro, I'm telling you, dude, that I come off like such a fanboy, bro, but I mean, Big J Okerson, who does the show with Dan Soder, he likes to come up with fake plot lines for what they're doing on Billions when Dan is out there recording and shit, which is always fun. And I realized, like, I cannot in no way, shape, or form do anything that they do justice, but if you seem like a comedy head a lot like I am, dude, so you should definitely at least give it a look. Maybe
100%. I've listened to clips actually. So I listened to Normand on it when he went not too long ago.
Dude,
I listened
his drops are the best. His drops are the fucking.
Yeah, so I'll have to check it out. But Soder's amazing. Okerson is fantastic, so I'll definitely listen.
Son of Gary, December 7th. Fuck, that's today, bro. I think Soder's special comes out today. God damn it, I gotta get on that. So, you said you had 4 guests in 5 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you take that and go, all right, this is where now I just learned I have to space between guests or I'm going to drive myself crazy? Because I've done that with podcast editing, which editing is another thing that I want to ask you about. And whenever you're ready to wrap this up, I know I have a tendency to overdo things. So
I'll as long as you want, I have time.
Okay, but go ahead. Sorry.
In terms of learning on how to space things out, Yeah, that's a really great point. I remember that specific week I'm talking about where I had 4 and 5 days. I think it was like I had Monday, Tuesday, had Wednesday off, and then I went Thursday, Friday. And I remember I was leaving to France on Saturday, so I had like an insane week. And I remember Christina Hutchinson was the last one of those four. She was on that Friday, and so I remember I had only three planned, and then Christina texts me or emails me like that Wednesday night. She's like, I can do Friday at 6. And so what that moment really showed me was, look, I'm leaving to France tomorrow, and I just did three in a row. Do I want to do a fourth? Do I feel prepared? Perhaps not. But the big lesson that I got from that
You might
is
not get the chance again, so you might as well
exactly
do it.
when opportunity presents, you do absolutely everything in your power to make it happen because you don't know when things come and go. And I haven't really had a lot slip away. Some that I feel like may have slipped away, but I don't think I'm usually pretty good at like if I want someone and they tell me Tuesday at 4 p.m., it's Tuesday at 4 p.m. Like that's just how things go. I will make my schedule work around it. So in an ideal world, do I like doing 4 and 5 days? No. But at the end of the day, I remember after that first one, I'm like, all right, you're going home, you're grinding out, you're listening to every single thing about your next guest, and then you're doing it all over the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. So is it tiring? Yeah. Does it take a lot of work? 100%. But then, at the end of that week when I was on my flight to France and I had four in the bank and I had all these cool guests
Feels
that I was happy,
amazing.
I was just sitting there on the plane like we did it. We're happy. We got everything we wanted. The files are good. Everything's perfect. But for me, the real thing is like, you don't know when these opportunities come again, especially with these, people who have busy schedules and are traveling all around the country, all around the world. So when they give you a time, you unless for some odd reason you really can't do it, and then you try to work out another time, you really try to make it happen.
Well, see, it's funny the way that you do things for all of your guests. I do the same shit, even though I'm just dealing with regular people. The only thing that's I mean, that's I guess a kind of rude way to put it, but I mean, it is though, dude. We're all just regular fucking people. I don't know why we gotta have this hierarchy for it. Now I'm defending myself for some reason. Now it's uncomfortable.
No,
Let's move past it. Damn. Okay, hold on. We're gonna fix this. We're gonna fix it.
you're all good. You want to, I think you asked me. I didn't answer the part about video or my editing.
Which I was going to ask you. I want to just
Hmm.
take a real quick look at the question because I had it written down a specific way, which was, oh yeah, how many people does it take to make your podcast happen, and do you edit it yourself? Which I'm pretty sure we got the answer for that already.
So yeah, it's a great question. It's a fucking team, man. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. It's in the beginning, of course, having a team and having people do different things becomes costly. So that's it's been an investment in that regard. So that's why having sponsors, even though they don't, I wouldn't say it's fully where I want it to be in financial terms. But even having sponsors that'll cut down on the cost has been huge for me. And I often get asked like, do you edit yourself? Do you do that? The answer is no. I have so the from Santa Barbara, from Hidden City Studios, my audio engineer Elliot Lanham, he's the best in the business. From the first day I started working with him, it was cool because what's crazy about this whole show is I've met insane people, and I've also worked with people that are just simply the best at what they do and things that I couldn't imagine doing. So with Elliot, he was like the first person when I first recorded at his studio and then had him edit my stuff. Now we work at such a good pace where I don't even need to call him. I send him the files. I send him what I want him to do on them. I send him this, that, and the other thing, and he puts it together into a beautiful final product. And so he takes care of all of my audio engineering. I remember I was sitting next to him once when we were first going over things that I wanted him to take out. I remember one episode I was cursing too much. I didn't like that. And so I'm like, can you take this out? Can you take this out? And I see him, he has his whole board. He has his whole setup. And he's maneuvering like his board and doing all these things with the sound volume that I was like, what in the world? Like, this guy is really good. And then I remember a month later, I walked back into the studio and I look at his wall and it said like multi-platinum award for engineering Katy Perry's Dark Horse album Elliot Lanham, and I'm like, dude, what? Like, what is this? And he's like, oh yeah, I won that. And it's like, oh, so you're like, you engineered, or you got an award for multi-platinum, whatever it is for like you work with Katy Perry, number one. So I knew he was amongst the best in the business.
Okay,
And so,
so real quick, I just want to cover my bases real quick. I just want to apologize to your guy. Not personal, kind of trash that song a little bit on YouTube. Not necessarily aimed towards you, but
hey, well, the good thing is that he's not Katy Perry and he didn't write it, so he just, at least it's good quality is all that matters.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. But yeah, so for him, he did all my audio, and then when I went to Brooklyn, I was lucky enough to find I was looking for studios where I'd potentially be able to record, and I found a studio that's really close to where I live. It's called Brooklyn Podcasting Studio. Shout out to everyone there. And I have my main guy who works there is Josh Wilcox, who's just fantastic. He's super professional, and so he does. We do my audio, or that's where we record the audio. That's where we record the video versions as well. He puts together the audio to line it up with the video, and then I send off all my audio. I always have Elliot do all my stuff with the audio. He's just fantastic. I love him. And then I have, actually yesterday I was at Harvard doing recording with an episode that with David Sinclair, who actually did Rogan not too long ago. He's fantastic himself, and so. But unfortunately, we didn't go to a studio for that one, so we had to go to his office. So I had someone come with me and bring all his equipment, a guy named Kip Clark, and then I also have someone who, for some of my promotional videos, my man Afrim, who does all my video work, and he's really good as well. So it's crazy because it's a and also shout out to my guy who put together my website, Richard James or Richard Smallwood. I don't know which one he. Can you hear me? Oh wait, hold up. Let me. I don't hear him on my headphones. Let me just connect them. Okay, there you go. Can you hear me now? Perfect. Do you know where it got disconnected from? Where what I was saying last that you have recorded? What's the last thing I said? Okay. Yeah. So so I have Elliot, as I spoke about, who does all my audio. I have Josh at the Brooklyn Podcasting Studio, who does everything when I go there. I have Afram, who does all my my like little promo videos that I like to do. He puts all that together. And then sometimes when I'll travel here in Boston to like I just had David Sinclair. I have my guy Kip Clark, and then when I have my website, when I need stuff to be added and taken down on my website, I have Richard James or Richard Smallwood.
that's
Not
what it
sure which one he
was.
goes by.
You were talking about
Exactly,
the website.
exactly. So yeah, moral of the story is that it can it can be costly. Or wait, sorry, that I think that was on my end. Let me just text my dad. Why? Oops.
Take your time, dude. Don't worry about it.
We're good. Okay, now I'm back. So yeah, it could be costly sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's it's with sponsors that kind of cut into the cost, and hopefully there'll be a point where I'll be paid lots of money to do what I do, and that'll be fantastic if there's a day that comes like that. But at the end of the day, it's an investment, but it's a worthy investment, and I really couldn't do it without my team. I know that sounds cheesy. I know that's what people say, but the reality is 100% that I couldn't put out the products and the people and the production that I do without all of those people. And it's great to just work with them because they're all super nice people and super professional, and they're just simply the best at what they do. So it's it's a privilege, and it's tough because some people, and I really appreciate you kind of seeing that, the production that is behind it, and recognizing that, because some people, they'll see it and they'll be like, whatever, fuck it, but there's so
No,
much behind the scenes work.
dude, it is what you do and what I do, and I'm not even. It's like acorns and oranges, dude. The level of production, the cleanness, the way that everything sounds, it's 100%. You can totally tell the difference between something that is professionally done. And like when I seen, I couldn't believe how well done it was. I was like, I don't
Thank
know
you.
what this fucking guy is doing, but like I actually, one of the questions I had written down was, how much did it cost you to make your studio? I thought you were in your house, like in the basement or something. I had no idea.
No, so yeah, it's not my studio. Maybe hopefully one day I can get to a point where I can have my own studio. That would be kind of sick. But no, I rent. I have like a somewhat of a contract with the Brooklyn Podcasting Studio. When I try to always record out of it. I love it there. It's where that's my home now, and so yeah, I'm under contract with them. And then it's I have a couple people I might be doing in California soon, so I go out there and I'll rent a studio there for however long I need. So for me, it's it is, these things are not cheap. That is 100% true, and I think whether you do it at home or whether you do it in a studio, there are ways of making it optimal. And for me, I've taken that into consideration. But I think for me, the big thing was why I wanted to put my money and invest in it was just because of that fact. As I talked in the beginning, it's like I'm young, and I know that compared to a lot of these top shows, I am younger than most of the people running them. So I just wanted to find ways that it would make me sound less young, less unprofessional, less this, less that, to at least get that out of the way. And so, it costs money, but to see nice products and things that I'll be able to show my kids hopefully one day, and people who want to watch this all around the world to see whatever product it is in good quality, for me is important. And it's cool, it's worth it.
Well, the one thing that you have, the one thing that we both have, I should say, to our advantage, even though it's more evident with the way that you have your whole team set up and all that, which, I mean, people could say it's cheesy all that they want, but I think there needs to be a lot more credit into the fact that you have assembled this thing together. That you realize that it takes a
Thank
team
you.
of people to do this, but
Thank you.
it's also that when Rogan started out, I think he said he was in his living room. So there was, if you go back and watch the old episodes, you can see the difference in the content. So just the
And that's why,
ability.
yeah, and that's why that exactly, and that's a great point, and that's I 100% agree with you. Whether you record at home, whether you record in your living room. I mean, I know like Christina Hutchinson and Corinne Fisher, when they started Guys We Fucked, and I still think they do record out of their living room. They literally sit in their living room and do it. Like, okay, they have good microphones, they have good this and that. They make sure it's quiet, but like, as if the quality is good, the quality, if the content is good, the content is good. Period. You know what I mean? Like, I could be in a studio, but my content could be trash, and no one's going to want to listen. So it's about finding the right balance with everything. For me, it was important to at least start off with a well-produced thing, and then really be able to focus on my content. And that's honestly why I have so many people on my team. It's because I don't have the skills to properly edit anything. I don't have the skills to record anything the right way. I don't know any of the technological stuff. And quite frankly, I don't have that much interest in learning it because it's so much. And for me to catch up to their level, it would take me years. So I'm not going to even try to do that. So for me, it's like this team, what having this team allows me to do. and spending the money, even if it is money, is that it allows me to focus on the things I want to focus on, which are the content and the guests and the questions and enjoying the moment. And so, it's a trade-off, like some people, I respect the people who record out of their basement or their bathroom and edit themselves, because they're hustling in a different way, and they may have better content than I have, or not even about being better, but they might have equally interesting content to put out there. So it's what's great about the podcasting world, I think, is there's so many different ways to do it. Some people record literally off their phones. There are a million ways to do it, but at the end of the day, if you have a good idea and you put the work in some regard, whether it's just doing the research or the production, the results will come. And so for me, it's really been trying to focus on getting the right process and being process oriented rather than results oriented, because what I noticed is when I set my expectations at 0 and I just focus on trying to do the best that I can do and get the guests that I want to get, and focus on just enjoying the grind of this process, then the results have all come from it. And it's always nice when you expect nothing and you get that one guest that you weren't expecting, or you get one guest who might tweet about you, or you might get an insane amount of listens, stuff like that. So it's all part of it, and that's what makes it rewarding.
Well, dude, I mean, that's the big problem with the way that all this shit is set up now, is where they have you concentrated on numbers. And I think that at least there have been plenty of times where that shit pulls away from my want to be creative, because I'm like, dude, every time I post some shit up, I lose more people. That kind of bums me out a little bit. But then at the same time, I think to myself, dude, I didn't get into this shit because I want to be fucking famous. I got into this because since I was a kid, I wanted to be in radio, and I know that was never gonna happen. You need 5 years experience at least before anybody will even look at a resume, and good luck trying to do that. So why not do this, be able to say whatever I want to say, and being happy with it. So I have to train myself to not look so much at what the numbers are, even though they're everywhere.
And hey, I had even yesterday with my the guy who helped me do all the recording for when I went to David Sinclair's office. He has a podcast himself. He's on episode 240, and I was asking him about it, and I'm like, dude, you've done 240 episodes. That's a lot of episodes, And he's like, yeah, I don't do great on the numbers or whatever great means. He doesn't have a lot of listeners, but for him it's been therapeutic. He enjoys the process, he enjoys the guests, and at the end of the day, whether you get 1 million streams or 10 streams, it doesn't matter. I try not to look at those numbers, especially not now. I like to look for it because it's interesting, because why not? But at the end of the day, I know that I feel like my process is at least on the right path. I think there are things I can still tweak, but as long as you're enjoying what you're doing and you're speaking to people that stimulate you in some way and make you think and make you reflect and change and can potentially change your life, I think that's all that matters. And and what I realized is so many of these opportunities that have kind of come about with this show and my interactions with people are always the ones that I just never expected. So it was just about, for me, it was keep your head down, grind. Sometimes you'll get rejected. Sometimes you might go weeks without getting a yes. That's, for me, the equivalent of taking a punch on the chin, and you just got to keep your head down and keep going and keep that fighter mentality. And for you, I mean, look, if you're passionate about what you do, you even in the way you were writing to me and when we were messaging, you want to do it, you're interested, and that's honestly, that's all you want to see. Whether you do it at home, whether you do it in a studio, for me, it's just keep grinding and keep doing you. And whether it blows up, whatever blows up means, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If it brings you joy, it brings you joy, and that's the main goal.
Yeah, which I mean, I think we've misconstrued what that term means now. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden that means millions of people. I have a core base of people that I know check out what I'm doing, I would rather keep that core of people than have 100,000 million, whatever, bunch of fake fucks that are just gonna jump on because this is the thing that's cool for the moment. Because at least, like, the whole point is being able to put some shit out that maybe somebody is going to be able to relate to or listen to this while you're going through your day at work or whatever it is that you were doing. And I had shit. There was something that I wanted to. Oh yeah, that's what you brought up. You bring up guests, right? Because I wanna ask this before I forget because it just popped up in my mind a few minutes ago, which was you do have guests, right? And obviously you're probably more comfortable with having guests on, but have you ever considered doing a show by yourself, or do you think that it would be better off for you just to have somebody else there for you to bounce off of?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's I'm the kind of person that, when I'm having a conversation with someone, I tend to. It's funny because some of my friends will be like, stop asking me so many fucking questions. Like talk about you. And honestly, I think it comes from a good place of me being interested in whoever I'm with's lives. But the reality is, I maybe to my own detriment sometimes I don't speak about my emotions or my life enough, and my parents have gotten on my case about it. They're like, Felix, I just want to know what's going on with you. Like, you asked me what's going on, but I just want to know what's going on with you. So, even like today, this is my first like real interview. It's like it's weird getting asked all the questions and being in the different seat for the first time. But I don't know. I think one day perhaps I could do a solo show, but I think there's part of me that feels like, why do people just want to live? Like, are people really that interested in what I have to say alone? Like, I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. So I think for like the time being, no. I think maybe in the future, would I be open to doing it? Sure, but I probably wouldn't do it a lot. Also, just because I do love having the guests, and that's super fun for me. It's much more fun than being alone behind a microphone in terms of like things that I would prefer doing. So yeah, I'm not opposed to
Right,
the
right, right.
idea. It depends what I'm going to talk about. Maybe if like, you know, I don't know. Hopefully this never happens, but maybe someday I get into something gets put on Twitter about me of like something that was taken out of context or goes viral and I have to explain myself. I mean, I hope not that would never happen, but unless I need to like really like sit down and talk to the masses for 45 minutes, then hopefully we never have to cross that road. So that would probably be like the only time I would really give it a go. But for right now, I'll stick to what I'm doing because I do love having a second or multiple guests on.
That's interesting, man. Because honestly, I mean, I do it by myself most of the time, but I have so much shit floating around in my brain that I. This is so weird, dude. Because with people that I talk to in my day to day life, a lot of the shit that I think about, I feel like I can't say to them. Yeah, I can come in here, turn a microphone on, talk into it, and release it to a whole bunch of strangers that have no idea who I am. It doesn't. It
And that's
doesn't.
cool.
It doesn't make sense. I don't understand why that is, but I mean, it works. So I mean, I'll get a couple of nerd questions out of the way, and then we'll fucking go from there because I know I said I was only going to keep you for an hour, and we're
No, it's
going
fine.
on
That's
an
fine.
hour and a half.
We're
But
good. We're good, man. I got time.
okay, what's in the cup? What's in the
What's in the
cup
cup?
that you were? And I don't know if you had one with Norman, but I know when you had Zuby on, you had a pink cup that was sitting on your desk, and I was thinking to
Hey,
myself
wait.
like, I bet you it's water, but if there's some type of beverage in there, he's smart,
You
unlike
wait.
me, for using a cup so that people are not getting Brandon for free off of you.
It's straight water. You are 100% correct. I only drink water. Somebody, I think it was Josh, who's my audio engineer when I go, or he does all my sessions when I go in at the Brooklyn Podcasting Studio. Amazing guy, love him. He joked with me once that because he has some guests that record there that'll like drink Hennessy or get drunk or smoke weed in there. And I don't know. I think I could not do any of those things. I don't smoke, but I don't think I could drink alcohol in there anyways. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be fun one day, and I drink with one of my guests down the line when I'm older. I don't know. Maybe, but for right now, it's been strictly water.
See, I don't know, dude. For me personally, if I had to choose between alcohol or weed, I would pick weed just because I know what it does to me. With alcohol, I get the spins and all that
Yeah.
kind of shit. You got to worry
Yeah.
about
No.
how much
I
you're eating.
Yeah. I don't smoke any weed, and I really don't drink often. It would just be on a.
I think I lost you. I gotta call you back off of mine. Hopefully that will work. I feel like shit. That's like the fourth time. Call failed. Why? Alright, hold on. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on here.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna redial you and see if that will work. I've been having an issue with my internet, of course, right before, and I'm talking to myself. Are we not? Is it not gonna dial? Yeah, how do I fucking... Oh, come on, man. Bro, what the fuck? Okay,
All right.
finally.
Wait, hold on. I need to reconnect my headphones real quick.
Good. Oh, fuck.
But I'm good.
I'll tell you this, Xfinity is about to get an earful in a second, bro. It's like of course, right before I have somebody on, this is the most that it's done this, but over the last couple of days, the internet has been cutting out hardcore, which is killing me, especially when you're
We're all
trying
good.
to do something,
Yes.
semi-professionally.
I don't know what you got last, but I think I was saying in terms of what's in the cup, it's just water. Oh, I think I was saying that yeah, I don't smoke weed, and I rarely ever drink, but it could be fun one day. I'll drink take a shot with Mark Norman, who knows, but for right now it's it's just water in the cup.
Dude, I miss marijuana a lot. I used to smoke. I go to a pain management doctor now, so they piss test me. If I come up positive for anything, I go on a blacklist, and I can't
Jeez.
get medication through the entire country. And the fucking dude, I'm about to get on a soapbox. The medical marijuana in this goddamn state is way too expensive for one, and two. But dude, weed has changed so much over the years. It used to be, granted, I've only, allegedly, I may have smoked maybe once in recent times, but that may or may not have been after I was drug tested. I don't know. Nothing. I'm just saying it's a lot different. It's a lot different now. Whereas if I drink, I feel like, I don't want to. I feel like lumpy, if that makes any sense. But with the
Hmm.
way that they design weed now, dude, it's like I can. It's better than the fucking pills. Like I could smoke a joint and I feel like I want to be active. It's not that stereotypical, oh, I'm gonna fucking just melt into my couch and watch cartoons weed. Nah, man, this shit will go, all right, we're ready. Let's go do something,
I
man.
look, I've heard, I have friends that smoke, and for whatever reason they choose, and I've heard a lot of benefits and some not so positives, but I don't, so I have no experience with this. But yeah, I hope it benefits you if you do choose to do it.
I mean, it would be much better for me to be on the fucking weed than it would be the opiates, but they only want you on the drugs that they want you on, which is a whole separate podcast. I won't drag you into all that nonsense because who wants to fucking deal with that? But honestly, I mean, dude, if you do it, you do it. If you don't, you don't. At least you're making a right decision that's for you. Don't let anybody try to fucking muscle you into making a choice either way. I mean,
Yeah.
with somebody that I knew when I was younger was kind of curious about it. So I was like, dude, if you want to try it, like I'll roll something up. You could take a puff if you like it. You like it. If you don't, you don't. She hit it one. She was. We were hanging out, and she was like, I kind of want to do it. I'm like, well, look, I'm not gonna pressure you. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't, don't. And she sat for a half hour and like really thought about it. And she was like, I guess I'll take a pull and see how I feel about it. So she took a pull from it, and then a couple of minutes later, she was like, yeah, you know what? Not for me, but I appreciate you not trying to pressure me into doing it because there was way too much of that. You know, I can imagine you being in college, the shit that you must have to deal with drinking. But I've seen movies. I didn't go to college, but I mean, I've heard it gets crazy.
Honestly, I've always kind of just I mean, my whole life since I've never smoked anything. I've always been pretty good since the beginning of just saying no. And honestly, it's been great with my friends, and I never really felt that anything in the beginning. They're like, come on, do it, do it. But like, they respect my decision, and that's why we're friends. And it's been if I choose to have a drink every so often, it's responsible. I don't feel a need to have anything, but I like to have fun, but I like to just stay. I like to at the end of the day, I don't want to put myself in positions where I feel like I could be compromised or put myself in jeopardy. So, but yeah, no, I think the college thing, I think some schools it's insanely like pressure oriented. I think where I'm at, and especially just kind of the person I am, like if I say no, I think people really understand that I'm just not interested and they leave you alone. And I think we're at an age now when you're like 20s, it's like look, like
It's
if they don't want
different.
to smoke, they don't want to smoke, It's different when you're like 15 and you're all like, "Oh, you should smoke."
Oh, dude, forget it. When I was fucking 15, it was all about, do drugs and try to fuck. That was it. And you know what, dude? Don't listen to any. If you're young, you definitely shouldn't be listening to this. But if by chance you happen to come across it and you're an early teenager, those kids that are trying to pressure you to have sex and do drugs are fucking squares. Let me tell you, bro. Every one of my jerk off quote unquote friends was like, oh, bro, what are you, a fucking virgin still, you fag? Like, what do you do? Like, come on, bro. 16 years old, man. I don't, like, I wasn't in a fucking, I was perfectly comfortable with jerking off, right? Like, at least I know what can happen. Nobody's gonna get pregnant. You gotta throw a rag out sometimes, whatever the situation is. But I wind up having sex with this girl. So then I go back thinking like, all right, I'm cool now. So I go to tell all my fucking square buddies, and they're all like, oh, well, what was it like? I'm like, oh, you fucking dirtbags. You all just tricked me into thinking like you all were cool and you don't know shit about what's going on. So don't let people peer pressure you because those are
I'm
all
good,
people
man.
that, or not even just you, and for the younger viewers,
Yeah, yeah,
hopefully
I know
you're
what you mean,
not.
but yeah, I
Go
agree
play
with
with
you.
Lincoln Logs or some shit. You definitely shouldn't be listening to what the hell I'm saying. I mean, I'm not a good influence at all by any stretch of the imagination, dude. Now I'm going to try to wrap this up. Call failed. You know, I'm about to just do it off my fucking phone. Try one more time.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hold up. Just give me a sec.
Ugh.
There we go.
Jesus, man, with this internet, bro. I should take my money back. I just paid them, too. I should take my damn money back. So let me get through the rest of these questions before we get cut off
Cool.
again. And, I have to feel like a bigger asshole than I already do.
You're good.
So I don't know what type of music do you listen to?
I listen to all types. Some people don't like Drake. I'm personally a pretty big Drake fan. I like him. I like I like uh honestly I like a whole lot of probably more basic music taste, I suppose, with like pop music and kind of what's out now. But I don't know. I listen to a lot of different things. People ask me that. I never really know how to answer it correctly because
So
whenever I say
like,
Drake, most people are like, Drake.
yeah, like, ugh. But I mean, whatever. You're cool, so you're cool, so it's okay. But I mean,
But I don't listen. I don't just like spam my playlist with Drake. I do enjoy some of his songs, but I do like I like
I,
rap. I like
you're supposed to though. I mean, that's the kind of music he makes, right? It appeals to everybody except for
yeah.
I'm spoiled, dude. When I grew up, Pac was out, Snoop was out, Dre was big.
Yeah,
You
I,
know,
I love all those guys too. All those guys too.
but I'm a fucking nerd. I mean, who's heavy in your rotation right now? It doesn't have to be in one specific music genre, but who's been like real heavy in your playlist lately?
What have I been listening to lately? I'm actually kind of playing some. I was listening to some good Future last week. I was Damian Lillard's new song is actually quite good. Moneyball. I was listening to some Tory Lane, some Snoop, some 21. I guess this is kind of heavy on like rap, sort of.
All that new auto tune garbage. No disrespect. I know all those guys will shoot me or beat me up or whatever, but I don't respect what you do, but the good thing is I don't have to because I'm not buying your records, you're not listening to my podcast, so it works out both ways. Fuck those guys. They don't need my support. Unless
Yeah,
you're
I don't know. I think I have a pretty basic music taste in that regard, but I don't. There's nothing that I don't like to listen to except for perhaps like heavy metal. You'll probably never catch me listening to that, or like or honestly, like I think I wish I was more into like old like 70s rock than I more than I actually am. So I kind of might try to get into that at some point, but
if you're
I don't know.
going towards 70s rock, I would definitely recommend Black Sabbath. I
Mm,
got into those guys because of the reactions I was doing on YouTube, which is
hmm
pretty fucking cool. Lord of this World. Like, if I give you a couple of singles, Sweet Leaf, Lord of this World. I mean, War Pigs is obviously an iconic song. Iron Man sucks. Don't let everybody hype you up and tell you how great of a song that is. That thing is trash. And you hate on this all you want, dude. Ozzy has better songs than that. I mean, there's definitely Hand of Doom is a really good one. The one
Okay.
thing that I like about Sabbath is that they changed like halfway through their song, they go in a completely different direction, and then they go right back to where they
Mm,
were originally. I haven't really heard many artists do that. I mean, people argue that they started the metal genre back in the 70s or whatever it was. I don't pretend to know, but I would
hmm
definitely recommend them and maybe Alice in Chains you might be into
Okay.
because they're a lot lighter. I think like Slipknot and people like that. I don't think you would like. It seems a little bit too heavy for you. But I mean, I
Gotcha.
just discovered a metal band, Ginger, bro. If you when you leave here, if you get the time. I know you're probably gonna hate this song, but if you want to get your mind blown, go load up Ginger Pisces, I think is the song. And the only reason why I'm not saying nothing else, I'm just gonna leave it at that, dude, because trust me, when the change comes, you're gonna be like, dude, where's fucking Ashton Kutcher at? He's gonna jump out of the fucking van or what? What is happening
Gotcha.
here? And well, all right. So the last two questions is, did you see The Irishman yet?
No, I was planning on doing that. Probably not this weekend, but probably next weekend.
Okay, so that X's that question out of the way. And who would be your personal top comics? Not as like, if you could put the podcast aside for a moment, guys that you love, and this is no disrespect to anybody that's in existence. And I mean, if it makes it easier, we can take Pryor and Carlin off of the list, as those are like two of the main iconic. That's like Biggie and Pac. It's easy to have those two dudes for a go-to, but are there guys that are really your favorite?
I always, yeah, let's say podcast aside, for me, the all-time the GOAT is truly Dave Chappelle. I think there's no one, in my opinion, I feel like there's no one better ever. I mean, it's hard, there, it's to say like, oh, he's better than others. It's different brands of comedy as well, but I think for me, Chappelle is just, man,
He's a
he's just
monster.
on a he's on a god level for me, and I think he's just a mixture of brilliance, and obviously his humor is fantastic. His he just also makes a lot of great like social commentary points, if that makes sense. And he, that's why I hate when anybody criticizes Chappelle, or whenever I see like a review that bashes like his new special and what he's saying about trans or gay
I
people. Like
love that shit.
if you truly listen to what he's saying, he's never ever bashing any particular group.
Bro,
He's
the dick
literally
on the
making a
table bit is the best.
I mean, he's everything about Chappelle I think is just absolutely brilliant, and in my opinion, he's a true unifier as opposed to what some people out there say to him. And he's just a gangster the way he goes about his business. He doesn't give a fuck what you think about him. He does no social media. He doesn't do any shows. He just kind of does his thing. And when you hear like the stories from him and touring with Rogan, when he brought Rogan on his tour, and just I mean, I was lucky enough to see Chappelle live on Broadway a couple months ago, and I mean, the guy is just, for me, he's just the best ever. So for me, he will always be like in a different category of his own. But I mean, I love Rogan, I love Schultz, I love Tony Hinchcliffe, I love Andrew Santino, of course Norman is my boy. This is all the comedians that I have. I mean, what I realize about comedy is there's so many people that perhaps don't have like the name of like a Rogan or a Chappelle, but are sometimes can be equally as funny and sometimes can have equally smart sets. And so I'm just a huge fan of comedy in general, just because I think it's a great like pastime. I think it's a great opportunity when, now one of my favorite activities to do when I'm with a friend back home is just like, hey, like maybe if we hit the club later, it's like, hey, you want to go to a comedy show before? Like, let's fuck around, watch comedy for a couple hours, and then go on with the rest of our night. And I love that, and I love that it's affordable as well. I think that's great. Most of these comedy shows, especially in New York City, I mean, New York City and LA, you can go to a great comedy show. I went to see, like, it was Norman was on it when I went to see Norman the other day. It was like $5 or $7 to go see part of whatever show he was on, and he had like a 15-minute set. I think I've said Norman's name like 100 times, so he's getting a good plug. But
Yeah,
he,
but fuck, dude,
it's
he needs it. He needs it
he,
because more
he
people, a lot of people don't talk when you name comics. The first people you think of obviously are Chappelle, Pryor, Carlin, Paul Mooney. At least these are the names that I hear
mhm.
often. The guys you don't hear a lot: Mark Norman, Jim Norton. Joey Diaz is starting to get his
Joey
name thrown
Diaz,
around a lot more. He's a
Joey Diaz,
fucking
yep.
monster, bro.
I know he is. That is 100% true.
I definitely am. I wish that we had more of a scene out here, because I mean, I'm down by where they filmed the fucking Jersey Shore. Yay. We get that instead of a fucking comedy scene, because there's not like a local club where I can go
Yeah,
to see dudes,
yeah,
like, which
right.
sucks, but you know Ugh.
Thank God for the internet. But yeah, it is different. It is different when you get to see him in person. And if you I mean, I don't know where in Jersey. Jersey's big, but I know I see sometimes a bunch of comics will do pop-up shows there. So I think if you're ever close, that's always cool. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not too particular with the familiar with the Jersey Shore like
It's
clubs and scene.
there's dick out here, dude, really.
Yeah,
To be honest
yeah.
with you. As far as any of that shit goes, I mean, you can if you go out to like Monmouth County, which is like 45 minutes away from where I live, they have To Catch a Rising Star out there where a lot of comics do stop in or they go out to the Stress Factory, but that's like an hour and a half away. Or,
Mm.
Wise Guys or whatever the fuck it's called. There's a lot of places, and I'm gonna kick myself in the ass later for not mentioning this, but, well, I should just mention, I don't know if you've ever heard of John Pinette before. It cut out again? Are you fucking serious? Alright, that's it. That's it, man. I'm just gonna end it. I'm just gonna end it. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Let me just fucking get on here and sign off with this dude. Appreciate having him on. This is fucking embarrassing, bro. Let's try it. For the last time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, unbelievable. Dude, I'm gonna save myself any further embarrassment and I'm just gonna fucking wrap this shit up, bro, because clearly this is not going to get any better. Seems like it just gets worse.
Yeah, no worries at all. Hold on, let me just make sure my thing. All right, there we go.
Oh, god damn it. It was going good in the beginning. Man.
Yeah, it happens, man.
But look, you know what though, dude? If anything, this should make you feel better. You know that all the money that you're putting into what you're doing is paying off. You don't have to deal with shit like this. But well, you know what? The last question.
That's the hope. Hey, I've had some bad experiences with people fucking up my audio too. So it happens.
Well, the last question I want to ask you before we get out of here, because
Hmm.
I'm really curious to know, is do you I know you hand your audio and your video up to other people to edit it, but do you feel like you give up any kind of creative control over it? But you did mention that you write notes, so I guess you just write down like, okay, saying at timestamp 20, I talked about walking my dog that didn't come off very well. It seemed kind of boring. Can we just cut that out? And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so for me, in terms of that, when I first set out to do this, one of the things that I loved about Rogan is that, for that reason, is that he doesn't censor and edit out his work. I mean, especially I think he streams live, so you get all the live things, and he doesn't, whatever happens happens. So I was really trying to go on that path because I think when you start censoring and editing too much, I think it can become, it kind of takes away from the conversation, unless it's like somebody reveals like confidential information or something they really don't feel comfortable having the world know. That's what I mainly do. In the beginning, as I kind of like touched upon, I had, had when there was one episode where I just, because of my guest and because of the environment, we are just like swearing and everything, and it was cool that he was swearing, but I felt like when I was swearing, it just sounded kind of cringy. So I tried to take that out, but other than that, I really try not to. And in the beginning, I would be self-conscious if I would say like or whatever. But that was when I also didn't have the video versions, and on the video versions, those are 100% unedited one like whatsoever. And now with the audio, in reality, they're really not that edited at all. Like it might be a word here, a word there. I had the other day. I had to take out a bit where somebody talks about something that they then asked me to take out afterwards. So it's mostly that. It's also Yeah, the most of the notes that I give to my audio engineer are just like timestamps and when to start here and there, so he doesn't have to do it. But I try to filter and censor and edit as least as the least as possible because I think the beauty of conversation is just kind of whether I say or there's like a 10-second pause, you know, it's kind of it shows the authenticity behind it. So as long as it sounds coherent and it sounds good and it sounds like it flows, that's all that really matters to me. And then of course, you know, if my guest wants to take something out or I really feel like something shouldn't be there, then I'll take it out. But I rarely ever have those moments.
Right, like I take names out. That's one thing that I do. If
Mm.
somebody mentions a town they live in, a city, whatever, I'll cut that shit out of the audio version. And for a while, I didn't even upload video just because it's so difficult to edit. That I was just putting the audio out, and then I throw sound effects in it to try to make it. It's hacky, but I mean, I always found that kind of shit funny, so I just try to do it, and hopefully, if it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But much like you, I try not to. I mean, unless I say like I don't know, a faggot or something like that, like I'll cut that word out of respect, just because I know some people feel some type of way about that. Not saying they shouldn't. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I'll cut it out. But I mean, everybody knows what the fuck I'm saying. It's just,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
even.
I think go ahead, sorry.
No, I was gonna say it's not even. It again. It's not like I said in the beginning. It's not meant the way that when I say that word now and somebody hears it is not the way that it. In other words, that's another way of saying jerk off. That's the way that I kind of view it. Like I don't have hate in my heart for anybody unless you chew with your mouth open. Then I hope you die. But other than that, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, I really try not to filter it. I think yeah, again, it's unless there's something that really requires that. For me, mostly when I make my notes, it's just so that um my audio engineer Elliot can save some time on his end, but you know, especially with the video versions now, I the video versions are 100% what they are, so or what happens. So, but you know, it's just about if I'm prepared and I do my job, then there should really be no need to edit that much in reality. And then in reality, I also in the beginning I would feel a little self-conscious maybe if I said too much or if I said like too much, and then I'm like, to be honest, no one's listening that intently to what I'm saying or how I sound. So
You are because you're listening to your own voice.
exactly,
I do the
exactly,
same shit though, dude. We gotta,
exactly.
you know.
So once I figured that out, I was like, all right, I'm wasting my time right now. Let's just keep this moving.
I've already marked 4 different places in my head that I'm gonna want to shoot myself later when I edit this because of trailing off or when I try to say something and then I get lost in it. Like just the fact that I just did that right now, I'm gonna want to be like, dude, you're such an asshole. Just shut up. Well,
But you know what? I realize it's like sometimes I get where you're coming from, but I think it's always more like important to us than it is to anybody else. And not to be hard on yourself is a big thing that I've learned because you know I've had moments where you know, things don't happen the way I want them, or I say something the way I don't want to say it, but I can't go back and change it, and I can't, you know. So it's just, and some things don't come to fruition the way you want them to. So I think it's this whole process of having a show and having this kind of experience is just take it as it goes, and what happens happens, and you know, worst case, thank God for audio engineering and audio editing, but we're, you know, the reality is people aren't paying that much. Even when I'm listening to Rogan, I love Rogan and his show to death, but you know, I'm not listening like with every ounce of what he's saying, how he's breathing. You know, it's not that important.
yeah, no, that's crazy. So the last question I will leave you with, because I'm if I asked you this already, you can tell me, but I know you brought up sponsorships, and a big question I had for you was: Have you ever, have you ever had a sponsor try to censor something that you've said? Like it doesn't even necessarily because you don't come off like the type of person that would say some outlandish shit anyway. But
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I haven't. there was so my first sponsor was this company called US Wellness Meats, and they, for people who don't eat meat or vegan or whatever, that might be they might not like that, but what I really wanted to make sure, because I almost had a guest who's a big like star in the vegan world. I didn't want my episode or my potential episode, because it still might happen, to be influenced by the fact that I'm sponsored by a meat company. And they're really cool. Like, they don't say anything. They're very complimentary. If I had a vegan guest, if I had an anti-meat guest, they wouldn't care. So I've been really lucky, and I would never, like, yes, getting money is nice, but I would never let any of these companies influence who I have on or what I talk about, because I think that would just, once you start getting influenced by things like that and by money,
It's
then that's where
over.
your shows. Yeah. So luckily, no, my sponsors have been really cool. I've been able to work with some really cool companies, and hopefully a whole lot more companies. If you guys are listening, come my way, and we'll make something happen, hopefully.
Yeah, right. If you're listening, bro, I mean, somebody out there, look, trust me. I think you're in a unique position where I think you have a general appeal where I think you have like a mainstream kind of a vibe to you where it's almost like you when you do shit you just fit in. It's almost like you were there from the beginning, just nobody knew it yet, you know? I'm
I
kind of
appreciate that.
guns going off, bombs everywhere. There's all kinds of crazy shit happening. So, I mean, if people don't sponsor me, I mean, whatever, I'm not heartbroken about it. You don't get into this shit for the money anyway. You do it for the
Yeah.
passion and the love of the game. But to hear you say that you don't allow things like that to influence you is a wonderful thing. I think it's important for people to hear that come from you, being somebody who comes off very clean cut and, dare I say, quote unquote, family friendly, right? Like, so,
Yeah, no, it is really something to think about, and it's maybe it's perhaps even been easier to stray away from that, because even the whatever contracts or agreements I have are not for that much money when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. And so it'll be, we'll see what opportunities arise. I just want to always have this mentality, and even if I am offered a really big deal in the future, to really remember, it's important for me to remember where I come from, what my roots, what my values are in terms of that. And at the end of the day, it's what I like about my show is that it's my show, and I get to make every single decision. And what I always tell people, it's like, if I don't write that email, if I don't send off my audio, if I don't post it, the show ends. It starts and ends with me at the end of the day. I have a great team, but at the end of the reality is, if I choose to stop recording tomorrow, there's no continuation of this podcast. So and that sometimes is a scary feeling, because you're like, wow, like, I need to do literally everything. And so that's why, hopefully, maybe one day, if I'm doing well enough, then I can have someone manage it, or have some kind of manager to do all the things that I don't want to do. But we're not there yet. We're quite far from it. So it's just about enjoying this process for me right now, and just sticking to what I set out to do. Because, again, as I talked about in the beginning, it's like, I feel like my process is on the right path. I don't think it's perfect, but I think I'm trying to do things as well as possible and as best as I can. And so I think the results hopefully will come. I think they already have. I'm thrilled with where it's at right now, and it's just about continuing to refine everything that I'm doing, and just I say make it better, but think about what making it better really means. And just the big thing is just keep working hard on what I have to do at school and with the podcast. And I think I hope that what I'm doing is the right way. And if not, then I'll hopefully get signs, and I'll have people around me advise me, and we take it from there.
well, if you want to plug your show quickly before I close this out, because I'm
Yep.
gonna I'm gonna do it in the beginning, but I would like you to do it also.
Perfect. So yeah, follow. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Felix.Levine. That's a little period, so it's Felix period Levine. On Twitter at Felix Levine. You can check out my website, felix-levine.com. My show is called Where's This Going? That's Where's with the apostrophe S. This Going. There's no question mark at the end. You can find that on Apple's podcast app, Spotify, probably everywhere that you get your podcasts. So make sure to listen there and rate it, review it, comment, whatever you want. And then on YouTube, you can just search my name up and you'll see my channel. I'm still working on getting that to be bigger, so that's important for me because that's where you can see all the video stuff, video versions of all my episodes. And I'm trying to get some more clips up there so that people, if they want to just, look for 3 or 4 minutes, they can find a cool tidbit from an episode. Make sure to subscribe there, comment, say something nice, hopefully, and yeah, you can find all my information on my website again at felix-levine.com. That's where basically everything that I just said is all put together in one, and I think that's it, man.
Beautiful. Do that shit. That's how a professional plugs their gimmick, dude. Don't, I do it, I'm a mess completely. But, like I told you, I think I might have mentioned this in the messages. If you want, I can send you the audio and the raw video of this if you want to cut it up and put it up on your channel. If not, no big deal. But it's also so if you want to listen back to it, if there's some shit that you're like, you know what, that just didn't, sit
Definitely
well.
let me know. No, nothing didn't sit well. Let me know. So you have your show is up on most of the platforms?
I'm on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube,
Cool.
a bunch of them.
So once you've got all the edited everything, just
Yeah.
send me. I'm a big fan of the Apple Podcast app or Spotify or one of those main ones. So just send me a link to the finished product, and then I'll promote it, man.
Okay, I'm not sure when it's gonna come out. Right
That's no
now,
problem.
I think the latest one I have is up to January 11th, so I can always stick it in right after that. Phrasing.
Perfect. My
Uh,
birthday's the 22nd, so you can put it out somewhere there if you want.
oh shit, definitely. I'll fucking write that down, dude, for sure.
Perfect.
Hold on.
Perfect.
Dead serious. I'll fucking do that shit. All right, but look, the video. Hold on. The
Yeah,
video.
send me a link to the video as well, and then I'll check it out. And if there's a clip that I could use, then fuck it, why not, man?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say the video is gonna be a fucking hard mess because audio.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be tough on your end, but good luck if you can do it, man.
Yeah, worst case scenario, the audio
Worst
will
case, just do
definitely
audio.
be
Exactly,
taken
exactly.
care of. But hey,
Perfect.
man, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Thanks a lot. I wish you all the fucking luck in the world, bro. If you ever want to promote anything, not that you're going to need my help, but just know that my door is always
I
open to you,
I
man.
I really appreciate it. It's crazy. I started this 7 months ago, and to be invited on a show is when you messaged me, I was thrilled. So thank you so much for having me on, and best of luck to you. You let me know what you need, and it's been fun and good conversation. And keep doing you. Keep doing what makes you curious, and best of luck to you as well, man.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you
Yeah, catch
later.
you.